Arrays are a special data type that allow us to house many values in a single container value. Before we talk about arrays specifically, let's talk about some intuition in the form of a dorm. So imagine a dorm, and imagine that there's a naming proposal for rooms that rather than having numbers, they're going to have names. So you might be in E-House Erudite Elephant, or Spencer Silly Snake, or Everett Loud Liger, so on and so forth. The question behind this thought experiment is, what benefits do dorm room numbers provide? Why are names not a good idea for dorm rooms? If you can reason through that question, then you can understand the motivation behind arrays in programming languages. So what are the benefits? Well, I'm going to enumerate three. First, naming is difficult and numbering is very easy. So with a dorm, you only have to come up with a name for the dorm itself, not names for each of the individual rooms. By assigning numbers to dorm rooms, you can quickly locate them. The number gives you some information about where you can find it. And finally, numbers make it easier to talk about ranges of rooms. For example, you'll take rooms 100 through 110 or 111 through 120, whereas with names only, you would have to list out every single name. There are other benefits too, but these are the ones we're most focused on when we're thinking about this concept in terms of arrays. So you can think of an array as a dorm for your data, where rather than having a value which can hold only one number, like a variable named a, we can have a variable that's an array of type number, and it can hold many numbers within it. So it's a container for many values. And the way that you index or address a specific value inside of this array is with a room number or an index. Arrays provide housing for many values of the same type. So we can have an array of numbers, we can have an array of strings, and there's some new terminology we need to learn in conjunction with arrays. First, each item of an array is called an element. Each element is addressed by its index, and our indexing starts at 0. All elements of an array are of the same type. So you might have an array of strings, or an array of numbers, or an array of booleans. The way that you address an element in an array is with the name of the array and the index. So the array name is followed by some square brackets, and then the index goes inside of those square brackets. Square brackets are only used with arrays in our programming language, and so anytime you see them, know that you're working with an array. So if we wanted to reference the array element at index 1, we would write a index 1. Indexing always starts at 0, not at 1, and this can be confusing for first-time programmers because the first index is always 0. And this is true of all of our assignments, like our problem sets start from 0, our worksheets start from 0, our quizzes start from 0. If you come into Sitterson Hall, the lowest level of building is floor 0. We try and carry this through with everything we do so that it feels more natural when you're doing this inside of your programs. This is a convention that's shared by almost every programming language. So how do we declare and construct a new array? Well, we can declare an array by saying let and then some name, like we're declaring a variable, b some type followed by empty square brackets. And so if we wanted to make an array of numbers named ages, we could say let ages, colon, or b, a number array. The way that we construct an empty array is by using an empty set of square brackets. So here we're saying let words be a string array that is initially an empty array. And so this is our initialization of an array. Let's try experimenting with arrays in your REPL. If you'll open VS Code and start your terminal, we'll type the command npm run REPL to begin our TypeScript interactive programming session. And so now we can declare an array, like let's say let a be a string array that is initially an empty array. Right? So this is initializing a to be an empty array. We can see that a, in fact, has nothing inside of it. We can assign to array at index 0 a string like hello. And we'll see that now if we were to reference what is in a, we see that a has a single element in it. The element is the string hello. If we reference a at index 0, we see that hello is the value stored at index 0. This is the element 0. We can also store an element at index 1, like say world. A at index 1 is world. And now if we were to look inside what is the array A, we can see that it is an array with two elements, hello and world. We can now reference A at index 1 and see that it stores the word world. A at index 0 still stores the word hello. And so we're addressing an array by the name of the array followed by the index. Each array has a special property built into it called the length property. and you can access it by saying the name of the array followed by dot and then length. And we'll see that the length of this array is 2. If we were to add a third element at index 2, hello world, and maybe more exclamation points here. So array index 2 is just 3 exclamation points. We can now see that the length of this array is 3. And we'll be able to use this to do some interesting things later. To give you a preview of something that's interesting we can do with arrays, imagine we have a variable I that's initially 0. We can say a at index I and see that that's hello, because what goes inside of the square brackets is an expression, and that expression can evaluate to a number, which will allow us to reference specific indices. So a of I plus 1, you can imagine is world. A of I plus 2 is going to be the exclamation points. And so we can do clever things with this index operator so that we can work with values in arrays programmatically. We'll take a look at that in the next video. In the slide deck, there's a reference sheet with all of the different things that you can do in terms of arrays. I would encourage you to play around with each of these concepts in the REPL, try making an array of numbers, assigning some number values to it, and getting a feel for how arrays work.